Sophie Cunningham did not mince words when she revealed the fevered president on live television. Her remarks were more impactful than anyone had anticipated, and the front office is currently in disarray.
Boring, it's not good basketball. Then all of a sudden, everything got spicy. Everything got negative. We need to talk about it. You guys, this is my live reaction.
However, this isn't a single instance of going viral. From dubious silences to a culture crisis that nobody anticipated, it's a full-fledged reckoning. I have all of the nasty details, including the receipts and the aftermath.
You that she's not the face of our league,
Yeah.
or if our league would be where we're at without her, you're dumb as shit.
Yeah.
You're literally dumb as fuck.
You guys played at Iowa.
It was intended to be a standard post-game activity, just another microphone, another player, another wrap-up. No drama, no attention. However, Sophie Cunningham took over and revealed everything in less than 15 seconds. You're a moron if you don't believe Caitlin Clark is the league's spokesperson. It was more than just a quote in one line. A verbal grenade was used, pure detonation without any filter or cushion. All of a sudden, the WNBA was doing more than simply basketball. There was a civil war going on. To put it plainly, this was not an opinion. It was difficult. A clear jab at the veterans who have supported Clark from the beginning. The executives who are hiding behind corporate silence and PR comments deserve a gut punch. And a red flag was raised directly at a league that was already faltering under duress. The internet went crazy in a matter of minutes. Clips featuring action movie edits are posted to TikTok. Sophie was transformed into a vigilante by Twitter threads. Instagram is overflowing with tribute posts, memes, and reels. She was referred to as the bodyguard, the enforcer, and the last authentic person remaining. This is the bit, though, that nobody is discussing. A soundbite didn't feel like it. It seemed like the unadulterated truth from someone who had had enough of the phony grins and disrespectful backhandedness. Cunningham wasn't merely supporting Clark, she was accompanying her into the fire. And there was silence at the front office of Fever, because Indiana's leadership was caught in a PR tailspin when one of their own ignited a rebellion in real time, while Sophie talked like a warrior. They also didn't have a plan for what would happen next. However, if Sophie's remarks have already energized you, hit the like button, because the more we discuss this, the more difficult it will be for the league to ignore it. Let's create a sound.
At the very end, and I'm not saying this is what caused it, but she dipped a little bit.
Yeah.
But she did dip, and then right when I saw, I was like, oh shit, like my bad. Not really my bad. And then they both came at me, I was like, fuck it, come.
Did you get fined for that?
Yeah, like $900,
Oh.
which like our fines are a joke.
The coolest part about that fight is that your face.
I didn't care.
You are aware of the time. Everyone does. Connecticut versus Indiana. Caitlin Clark sustains yet another injury, this time from JCS Sheldon. This is not the first instance. It won't be the final one. However, what took place next, that was the turning point. There was no waiting for a whistle from Sophie Cunningham. She joined the group. Like a linebacker tired of being nice, he charged in, grabbed Sheldon, and threw her. It wasn't a shove, it was a declaration. The audience froze. Commentators made mistakes. She was fined $900 by the referees. Sophie laughed as well. She allegedly remarked, "That's it," as if it were the cost of entering a new age. Immediately after, the moment went viral. Before the sweat ever touched the court, slow-motion replays were posted to Twitter. The identical message appeared in each caption: "Protect the Queen." However, the highlight reel didn't show the entire story. It took place afterwards. Caitlin turned to Sophie in the locker room and uttered the single word, "Finally." Not "ah," not "thanks," simply "at last." That was the voice of fatigue. That was months of elbows, bruises, and the emergence of quiet. Sophie simply said, "I got you," while looking her in the eye. There are only two players focused on something genuine, no cameras or PR filters. This was no longer about basketball at that point. Clark had evolved beyond his role as a player. She turned into a representation. Furthermore, Sophie was more than just a teammate. She became a battle cry. A line in the sand moment was created by that one act of resistance. Complicity or unity? The majority opted for unity, since it was impossible to resume normal operations following a hit like that and a reaction like Sophie's. The message was very clear, and the battlefield had been sketched. Stay out of the way or defend one another.
Doing this. Two Caitlin Clark teammates weren't jumping in there. They bring in Sophie Cunningham. I had no idea. Sophie Cunningham was a black belt at the age of 6.
Yeah. Yep.
Boom!
Wow.
JC Sheldon, that's cute. You want to poke her in the eye, then push her into a boom, Mabry thing? Go ahead. I'll take a take foul, and you'll eat the deck a little bit here. And then we'll get out. I love it. I know people aren't going to like this. I like the Connecticut team doing what they did.
The tension behind the scenes was mounting. JCS Sheldon wasn't thrown by Sophie Cunningham on a whim. For months, she'd been seeing the slow burn. There was no paranoia here. It was the recognition of patterns. There was no online conspiracy behind the league's covert effort to discredit Caitlin Clark. It was essentially a well-known secret. Observation from the sidelines. After the whistle, late bumps. Muttered cautions on team buses and smirks on the bench. She didn't deserve it. She isn't prepared for W. In other words, break her before she makes a breakthrough. And Sophie kept track of every second. While the rest of the league played dumb, she maintained mental receipts. However, it ended when Clark was leveled for the 6th time in a single game. The explosion was certain when the match and fuse came into contact. She didn't react carelessly, it was morally right. Additionally, return to the Fever locker room. Don't pretend any longer. No more ignoring the blows. As the players turned to face Sophie, they noticed that someone had finally gotten up and declared enough. And that excitement quickly spread. Neutrality was suddenly out of the question. Either you were with the stillness or you were with Clark. Silence also had a face. When her star came under fire, the former president disappeared. No declarations, no backing, just corporate timidity concealed behind platitudes. Sophie, meanwhile, was in the trenches doing what the leadership refused to do. They also spotted the team, because they won't be following the person in the press box when the storm strikes again. The person they are riding with has already demonstrated that she is prepared for battle.
A simple call right in front of your face multiple times. What are you?
With increased viewership, booming merchandise sales, and stacked headlines, the WNBA has been riding the Caitlin Clark tidal wave as if it were their last chance to survive. But when it came to truly defending her on the court, Sophie Cunningham and the top brass were silent and uncommunicative, and she wasn't going to stand by and allow that double standard to continue. With one target in mind and a flamethrower loaded with receipts, she went scorched earth, aiming directly at the league's suits. She attacked the referees, displaying hypocrisy while wearing fancy clothes. I would be kicked out if that were me. But no whistle, no assistance, and no damn justice for Caitlin. She then presented the league's leadership with a blowtorch. They will not defend her, even though they are making money off of her. In addition to being hot, their words were radioactive. The video went viral on the internet. They printed t-shirts. Signs of protest were displayed in the courtside rows. Sophie's tirade lacked the sense of an interview. It had the feel of a manifesto, a rallying cry for all the supporters who had been watching the hits mount up with no repercussions. Cunningham was more than simply a player all of a sudden. She was the most perilous truth-teller in the league. The president of Fever, meanwhile, disappeared. MIA is the just silence, no defense, no quotes. And during that quiet, the league's reputation began to deteriorate. The WNBA was making money off of the pandemonium in addition to neglecting to protect their star. Sophie did more than simply criticize poor officiating. She revealed a system that was dependent on Clark's attention while allowing her to work in the background. It was not a PR blunder. It was the entire fucking plan. And Cunningham put the league in a difficult position with a single widely shared microphone drop. Either defend your stars or acknowledge that you are abusing them. The center ground has vanished.
Hear it in the video right here. The Indiana Fever fans were chanting, "Sophie, Sophie." jersey is gonna sell out tonight. She's gonna be in the All-Star game tonight just from this one play because she was standing on business. It wasn't a dirty play. It was an intentional foul, and it was meant to send a message. And how egregious the referees were and how they were not protecting players, and they especially weren't protecting the #1 player in this league, the biggest draw in this league, which...
And the fans, well, they knew. They were done being polite after witnessing every shove, call, and moment of league silence. The fan base provided the gasoline, and Sophie lit the match. There were no vintage WNBA diehards enjoying tea in the attic. While the league sat back and sold jerseys, they were Twitter parents, YouTube reactors, TikTok fighters, and Clark stans who witnessed their girl being bullied. The rebellion suddenly took on a face. The enforcer, the truth teller, and the person who didn't wait for PR clearance was Sophie Cunningham. Like confetti, TikToks fell. Gladiator music, slow-motion shots of Clark's wounds, and captions like, "She's getting mauled and they call it defense," are played during Sophie's tirade. "I'd never watched a WNBA game before, but I'd go to war for Sophie," one youngster wrote on social media. Her following skyrocketed from 200,000 to over 1 million in just 48 hours. The jerseys are sold out. Tearful messages were being posted by parents. At practice, even girls in middle school were repeating Sophie. It wasn't advertising. There was a movement. And the league is still unable to exit the buffering screen. They made some outdated corporate tidbits regarding league behavior and competitive respect. Not a single word about Caitlin Clark, nothing human, nothing personal. At that point, the anger started to build because missed calls were no longer the only issue. It was about the betrayal of a player, of a fan base, of a moment. Sophie wasn't finished either. "You are alienating the very individuals who are preserving your league if you do not defend her." Boom! The centuries line. It made its way onto shots outside stadia, banners, and t-shirts. The WNBA insulted their stars' entire future rather than merely ignoring them. And the fans were prepared to go with their cash, their allegiance, and their girl. Take a moment to pause. Is Sophie the only one prepared to criticize the system, in your opinion? Comment on the next WNBA player you believe is going to lose it. This is only the beginning of the fire.
Fever fans, because you guys came in so strong and were doing exactly what fans need to do. They were booing these players every time they touched the ball. They were getting active. They were getting after it. I'm surprised the WNBA hasn't launched an investigation yet, honestly. But the Connecticut Sun started to get embarrassed, and that is not a good place to be. That's actually a dangerous place to be when you're on the court. And so I was worried that things are going to get even more physical, because when a team feels like they have nothing to lose, sometimes they start to get dirty, they start to get extra physical. And this is not only something that happened.
This was no longer solely about Caitlin Clark. Sophie Cunningham was more than just a match tosser. When she stood up, she wasn't just standing up for Clark, she was igniting the entire system. She was revealing the truth about something that was nasty. A league that pleaded for attention, then gained it, and then went utterly crazy when it came to yelling for change and donning Clark jerseys. Let's be honest, Sophie revealed the resentment, the jealousy, and the small-minded gatekeeping from veterans who pretended it was normal. No, it wasn't hazing, it was sabotage. Additionally, you could almost hear the whispering. It wasn't earned by her. She's simply another hyped white chick. She avoided the conflict. No, she made your paychecks relevant, packed the venues, and increased the viewership. And some guys made it into a hit job rather than praising that. Sisterhood isn't that. Self-destruction is what that is. Sophie then revealed the quotation that revealed everything. "We have always desired this. Why are we upset that it's occurring at last?" It was more than simply a mic drop. No one in a position of authority dared to speak the truth. Because the system was designed to endure rather than to flourish. Thus, it froze when the spotlight eventually struck. The president of the Fever himself bailed. The league was silent, and Sophie turned into the voice that admirers had been longing for. She had no intention of being the hero. She grew more significant, though, when everyone else became silent. The first to swing and mean it. A walking rebel with a high ponytail, a line in the sand. Sophie Cunningham's straightforward statement rocked the league as it stalled in PR limbo. Sophie entered the spotlight with rage, fire, and facts, even though she hadn't asked for it. The league now has an option: burn or evolve. Because Sophie Cunningham brought the war, even though Caitlin Clark may have brought the audience. This is not the end of the narrative. Subscribe now if you're riding with the truth, rather than the politics. We're keeping up with every turn, every retort, and every awkward reality the league tries to avoid.